What if one of the most influential theories in biblical scholarship was shaped less by ancient evidence and more by a 16th century theological grudge match? For over a century, scholars arranged the Pentateuch sources, that's the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis through Deuteronomy, are in a tidy line. But that line was drawn not by history, it was drawn by bias. To understand why, we need to revisit one of the most influential ideas in biblical scholarship, the documentary hypothesis. This theory holds that the Pentateuch wasn't written by a single author. Instead, it was woven together from 4 distinct tradition streams, each developed by different circles within Israelite society over centuries. J, the Yahweh's tradition, narrative, with an anthropomorphic God. E, the Elohist, focused on prophets and divine distance. D, the Deuteronomist, covenantal law and ethics, and P, the priestly tradition, ritual, genealogy, and cosmic order. These aren't individual authors, they're communities of thought. Now, a quick note. While the specific dating model we're about to critique has been heavily revised, the core insight, when there are multiple source traditions compose the Pentateuch, remains widely accepted in critical scholarship. We're questioning the sequence and its biases, not the existence of the sources themselves. So far, so good, but the real question is, when did each source arise? This is where things get messy. In the late 1800s, German scholar Julius Wellhausen proposed an enormously influential answer. He arranged the sources as a descending staircase. At the top, J and E, representing early Israelite religion, free, spontaneous, spirit-filled. In the middle, D, with its humanitarian ethics. And at the bottom, P, which Wellhausen characterized as late, ritualistic, legalistic, a degeneration. Religion in his model started pure and declined into priestly bureaucracy. The timeline ran from roughly 950 BCE down to 550 BCE. It looked clean, it looked scientific, and for a century it dominated the field. But look at this comparison. Wellhausen described early Israelite religion as free, spontaneous, and spirit-filled. Protestants described early Christianity the same way. Wellhausen cast later Israelite religion as ritualistic and priest-dominated. Protestants leveled that exact charge against Catholicism. Wellhausen labeled P, the priestly source, as legalistic degeneration. Protestants called Catholic sacraments legalistic corruption. And Wellhausen's model implied Judaism was spiritually dead by the time of Jesus, a view called Supersessionism, the theological claim that Christianity replaces Judaism. This wasn't a coincidence. Wellhausen was a product of German Protestant culture, and his model carried those assumptions into the heart of biblical scholarship. He was brilliant. He was also shaped by his context, as every scholar is. So if the staircase model is biased, what does the evidence show? Here's a critical distinction. Recognizing Wellhausen's bias doesn't automatically make P early. P's final form is still exilic or post-exilic, meaning it was finalized around or after the Babylonian exile of 586 to 539 BCE. But final form is not the same as origin. P contains layers, and some of those layers are ancient. 3 features of P point to pre-exilic origins. First, ethics. P emphasizes communal, collective responsibility. Post-exilic writings like Ezekiel chapter 18 shifted toward individual ethics. If P were entirely post-exilic, individual ethics should dominate. They don't. Second, worship. Many P passages don't assume a centralized sanctuary. King Josiah enforced centralization in 622 BCE. P texts that lack this assumption likely predate that reform. Third, intermarriage. P doesn't use purity language to draw hard ethnic boundaries between Israel and other nations. Post-exilic texts like Ezra and Nehemiah do exactly that. P's silence on this point suggests earlier origins. Each feature contradicts what we'd expect from a purely post-exilic composition. If P isn't simply late, then what's the right model? We need to replace the staircase with something more accurate. Not a decline from purity to corruption, but parallel streams. Different voices from different circles within Israelite society running alongside each other through centuries of history. Here's the new framework. 3 tradition streams flow through Israelite history in parallel. JE, the prophetic and narrative traditions, carries ancient fragments and reached final form before 622 BCE. D, the legal and covenantal traditions, preserves northern Israelite material from before the fall of the northern kingdom in 722 BCE, then was finalized during the Babylonian exile. P, the priestly and ritual traditions, runs the full length of Israelite history, containing very old material but reaching final form in the exilic or post-exilic period. All 3 streams contain ancient material scattered throughout. All 3 overlap significantly in time, and at the far end, a redactor, the editor or editors who combined everything, wove these streams together into the Torah we have today. These are not stages of evolution. They're different voices in a centuries-long conversation, prophetic, legal, priestly, each ancient, each valuable. Let's see what this new framework looks like in practice. Consider one of the most striking features of the Pentateuch, how it ends. Deuteronomy closes with Moses dead on a mountaintop, the promises unfulfilled, and Israel still outside the land. Under the old linear model, this ending is just a narrative waypoint before the book of Joshua. But under our new framework, Deuteronomy was finalized during the exile for an audience that had lost the land. And suddenly, the open ending becomes a deliberate editorial choice. Look at the parallel. In Deuteronomy, Israel stands east of the Jordan, gazing at a land they cannot yet enter. In Babylon, the exilic community sits far from home, gazing at a land they've been driven from. Same situation, same ache. The redactors left this ending open on purpose, their message to the exiles. What matters is not possessing the land. What matters is fidelity to the Torah. The Pentateuch's ending isn't a failure of the story, it's the point of the story. And that brings us to the bigger lesson. Recognizing the biases embedded in scholarly models isn't just an academic exercise, it changes how we read the text. When we stop seeing P as degenerate and start seeing it as one voice among several, each ancient, each carrying its own theological vision, we recover a richer, more honest picture of Israelite religion, and we learn something about scholarship itself. Our frameworks always carry assumptions. The best scholarship names them, examines them, and corrects course when the evidence demands it. The Pentateuch wasn't a decline from spirit to law. It was a conversation, prophetic, legal, priestly, and every voice in it deserves to be heard.